And I also wanted to say that another key theme of the new paradigm is actually emotions. Understanding your own emotions, allowing them to move you, to allowing them to help you grow and evolve and feel. Like feeling your feels is so important. And then understanding other people's emotions in your life without absorbing them or like reacting to them too heavily, in your own reactionary way. That emotional realm is also a huge part of this new paradigm. And that's because our solar plexus center in our body graph for all of us, like this is the main consciousness center that we are evolving into and developing. And so I just wanted to say that, Gen Z is learning about themselves with astrology and human design. I also think that this is like the era of therapy. Go to therapy if it calls you. Read self-help books, understand yourself, feel your feels, get a healer, go to a Reiki practitioner. Anything that you can do to really understand and feel your emotions and become more emotionally intelligent for yourself, for the people in your life.
Welcome to Hopeful and Wholesome, the show where ambitious women come home to their bodies. I'm your host, Hope Pedraza, and I'm a functional practitioner, human design guide, and expert on all things energy, and your partner in decoding the language of your body. This is your space to reconnect with your body's wisdom, reclaim your energy, and rise into alignment in your health, your business, and your life. Because thriving isn't about pushing harder, it's about learning to listen deeper. So let's dive in because your next breakthrough starts right now. Hey y'all, welcome back to Hopeful and Wholesome. Today I have on the show Shayna, Cornelius, and Stiles, and they are part of DayLuna. They are human design experts, best-selling authors, and co-founders of DayLuna. They're on a mission to empower the collective towards self-love, personal freedom, and radical authenticity using human design. Through their live readings, reader trainings, video courses, and their Human Design Besties membership, and now their book called Your Human Design, Discover Your Unique Path and How to Navigate It with Purpose. They have curated many different playful yet informative offerings to help support people who are ready to step into their highest potential by honoring their unique energy. And I am so excited to have them on the show. I had the honor of being on their show last year. I think it came out in the fall of last year. I'll put a link in the show notes to that. But they are so fun, and we had the best time nerding out on all things human design. And today we're specifically talking about the 2027 shift. We'll talk about a few other human design nerdy things as well, but specifically about what's coming, or actually what's happening right now. And we're really going to see it unfold as we get closer into 2027 and into 2027. And I think this is such a timely episode as we've just entered into a new year this year, and we're going to see even more evidence of what we're going into in this 2027 shift. So this is such a good episode. I am so excited for y'all to get the ins and outs of what to expect, how things are shifting, and what you can do to really support yourself and kind of step into this big collective global transition that we're moving into. So let's jump in. Here with Shayna and Dana. Thank y'all so much for hopping on today. I love a podcast with more than one guest, so these are so fun for me. So thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, we're
thanks
excited.
for having us.
Anytime it's a human design party and we just get to dive deep and nerd out together, it just it feels like a celebration for us. So we're actually really excited for connecting with you and being able to have a conversation today.
So I would love to start out, before we dive into all the things, I would love to start out, and y'all can both just kind of share your experience. Because like I've said in the intro, like y'all are the human design queens here. So I would love to know from each of your experience, like how life has shifted for you after taking this journey to human design and being able to really embody it. Like how has that changed things, just life, business, relationships, all the things? Like just what's your experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed everything, literally everything. And I think that the biggest change, like pre-human design and now like being in our experiment for over 7 years now, is just like I feel like the trust fall into the experiment right in the beginning is like, what is this real? Like, let's see, prove it to me kind of energy that most people have of like, okay, or that feeling of like, yes, that is everything I've ever felt. Okay, I'm excited to lean in and see how this feels and how this works for me, right? Like that was in the beginning, that kind of like exciting, but still the feeling of trust right? And I think that that trust just keeps deepening of like, okay, now I'm on a different level or a different octave or a different phase of my life, a different chapter. And like, can you keep trusting? Like with big things, right? Like, okay, can I really use my strategy and authority when it comes to my husband quitting his job and us moving across, the planet to a different country and, renting out our house, like these big decisions that are going to change the course of your life, not just decisions on like, should I go on this trip with friends, or should I launch this new product in my business, or should I quit this other thing I'm doing? But like huge, huge things, like should I have a baby? Getting to use my design in that process and really just trust that my authority said this is right for me. And so it is. And seeing that it always does work out, even when you're not at the end result yet, right? I think that that's been the biggest thing that I've seen in my life at this point, is like things don't get less scary when you are using your design, but they feel like even if something is scary, there's that energy of trust of like, okay, I know that I can trust my design. I know that I can trust this system because I've been using it so long. And here we fucking go. Like, that's how I feel all the time. Like, all right, universe, here we go. I'm going to do it. And we'll just see. And it always does work out. So I'm like, trust.
I love that. So good.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, for me, I would say professionally, before even knowing I was a projector, I always knew on some level that I was not meant for the status quo 9-to-5 job. I knew that that is not right for me, but I also didn't know what was right for me. And I couldn't really imagine where I was meant to be in my power and sharing my gifts. Like I just couldn't grasp that. But I knew for certain that this traditional status quo job was like not my jam, not for me, that I was never going to fit into it, even though I tried to, and it literally made me feel sick. It made me feel so bitter. It made me feel so depressed. It made me question my entire life to try to do that. So in a professional sense, human design has changed my life because as projectors, our self-theme being success, I truly feel that we have found this level of success as our true selves, and it feels so liberating, so empowering. I honestly can't tell you how grateful I am for that, because for me, having financial freedom and being able to share your purpose and your gifts with empowerment and authenticity, like for me, it trickles down into every other aspect of my life. My relationships have gotten better. I love myself more. I have more self-confidence. Like for me, that, even though it's just career, people really like sever that part of their lives from who they are as a being, and they think of them as separate. But for me, coming together and making it all one and feeling that I get to show up as the full and complete version of myself and everything I do has transformed my life. And then, just on a more personal level, like even with my husband, I was telling you before we started recording that he's a rock climbing guide and he's an incredible climber, and I am not. I am like a couch girl, and I love being out in nature and I love hiking, and I do climb with him sometimes. But when I was like 25, when we were together, I was like, do I have to become a rock climber in order to be in a relationship with him? Because just in the rock climbing world, it's a very fringe like version of society, and they have their own societal structures within that group of people. And usually it's like two badass climbers who are together. Otherwise, you can't be with that person. And so I just had all this inner turmoil about, am I really good enough because I'm so different? Can we make this work because I'm different? And when people would, give me the eyes because they're like, your husband's this really badass climber and you're not, and they would judge me, I would internalize that shame. But now that I know who I am, with so much clarity, and I've been living that way for so many years, and I've been making decisions based on who I really am and what's in alignment for me, it couldn't even faze me for a second for someone to question who I am compared to who they thought I should be. Like it just honestly erased a huge part of that in my life. And of course, I feel like our journey in life is always deepening. We're always coming back to the same lessons on higher octaves or on deeper octaves. But I genuinely feel like the clarity and confidence I have in who I am is unshakable. And in moments where it gets questioned, I have the tools to come back to soothe myself, to remind myself, and I'm not outsourcing that validation or approval from anyone else. And so personally, in my relationships, it's been extremely powerful, but also, in my professional life, our lives look completely different than before. And I can't even imagine a world where we have to go back to not having full autonomy about building a career that works for us and that is in alignment with who we are.
That's so poignant. And I love what you said. Everything both of y'all said resonated. The part about the relationship is such a big piece for me too. And having those questions where it's like, 'cause me and my husband are so totally different. And especially like from a profile perspective, I'm a 3.5 and he's a 2.4. Like statistically, like this is what happens with those profiles, right? And so for a long time, I felt that too. He's so outgoing and and I'm super introverted. And so same, it's like, okay, so do I need to be more like, I had those questions in my head too. And that human design really, really walked me through that part, like being able to embody that. And like you said, like owning all these pieces. And then also to your point of like bringing it all together where we kind of compartmentalize all these different pieces of us. Like we can also bring it into this holistic, like cohesive version of you where all these things are connected because they're all an extension of you rather than like separating it out. So I love that you brought that up. And then something Shayna said about how things don't get less scary when you're embodying this human design. It's just, you know how to navigate it. And I thought that's such a powerful statement because I think sometimes we do think like, oh, I have this blueprint and this framework and now everything's going to be so easy and I'm going to be in the ease and the flow. And like, it doesn't, like, it's not like a magic wand, to make life easier, but it's like, now you know how to navigate the hard things. It's not less scary. We just know how to, Hey, y'all, we'll get right back to the episode. But first, let me ask you this. You've built a vision that others admire. And you've built something that you're really proud of. But behind the scenes, your body feels like it's lagging behind. It just can't quite catch up to your brilliance and your mission that you have. That late night second wind, the foggy mornings, the hormone shifts, the endless push and forcing. You can't strategize your way out of that. And you already know you don't need more supplements. You don't need another supplement stack. You also don't need another side hustle disguised as self-care because nobody wants to have their health as a side hustle. This is about recalibrating your entire ecosystem. And that's why I created the Quantum Reset, a premium 3-month high-touch healing experience for visionary women who are ready to feel as powerful in their bodies as they do in their business. Inside, we decode your nervous system, your minerals, your hormones. We read your labs like the sacred text that it is, so we have actual answers. And then we pair that with deep energetic recalibration, subconscious release. We use gene keys, we use human design, and true embodied healing. This isn't about fixing burnout, because that's not what we're doing here. This is about becoming the woman whose body is powerful, whose body is completely electric, whose energy, clarity, radiance finally matches the size of her mission. If you know your success isn't meant to cost you your vitality and you're ready for a science-backed, spirit-led reset, then the Quantum Reset is your invitation. So check the link in the show notes or send me a message on Instagram, and let's bring your body back online with your brilliance. Now, let's get back to the show. It.
Yeah, navigating it with a sense of safety, right? And confidence, like Dana was talking about, of knowing who you are and how to navigate and having this, like this stability within yourself, really, I think is huge because there's not really many things out there that offer that. And it's just so interesting. I think that a lot of people, when they think about being spiritual or awakening or living in alignment or whatever, it's like this, or even if they have people that they idolize, like gurus or I don't know, like celebrities or whoever, and you're like, oh, they've made it. It's like, what does that mean? I think we are all kind of thinking like, okay, when am I going to get there where I don't have any more stress and I don't have any more, whatever. And it's like, you just get to another place where you're now going to step even further out of your comfort zone, wherever you're at. And like, it's going to feel like, oh, that's like, is this right? Should I do this? Like, is that okay? And then you have to come back to like, okay, what are my tools? What's my strategy and authority? We would say for human design, like really knowing yourself just makes it so much like you're doing it with yourself is what it feels like. Yeah. You're not doing it alone, right? Like you're doing it with yourself, observing yourself and your energy and knowing who you are. So it's been like, I feel like once you really know about your design and lean in, like you can't go back, right? It's like you can't, once you like, first start experimenting with it, it's like, and it works, right? You can't just be like, okay, I'm done with that. I find that most people are like, okay, how do I learn more? How do I learn more? And it's a never ending rabbit hole.
It really is. But it's true. I mean, once you know it, you can't unknow it. Like you can't unsee it. One thing I wanted to ask y'all about that we haven't talked on the show about, like you were saying, like nerding out on all the human design things, is there is this paradigm shift that's coming in 2027. Interestingly enough, fun fact, my incarnation cross is the rising phoenix. So it's like my incarnation cross and the paradigm shift is all happening. So that's been interesting for me to really dive into. But I would love for y'all to break down what is happening in the next couple years, or I mean, as technically it's like all leading up to this, but like 2027 is like the shift, the paradigm shift. What that means, what's happening. And I just want to dive into all this and kind of pull these pieces apart.
Totally. Yeah. I love that you wanted to talk about this because it's one of our favorite things to talk about, human design and a lot of astrology, or even like Vedic astrologers or Western astrologers, anyone who's looking at the transits, they really see this huge shift coming in 2027. Now, human design gets really specific with everything per usual. But Ra has talked about this new paradigm that's happening in 2027, where we're going to be shifting into a new cross of incarnation. So what you were just talking about, Hope, of your cross of incarnation of the sleeping phoenix, that's what collectively we are all going to be shifting into a new cross of incarnation. We have human design transits that are happening all the time, just like we have astrological transits that are happening all the time, right? And so because human design breaks things down so specifically, it doesn't just go into like the zodiac energy, it breaks that up into different archetypes. And you can see that with the different gates. And, if you're looking at the I Ching or the mandala, you'll see that broken down there, right? And then it gets into your cross of incarnation there. It makes this like perfect cross. So collectively, we've all been in this cross of planning. So the last 400 years-ish, we have been in this era of building, of creating community, of figuring out how we can fit in with one another, of creating groups. So this, like, think about creating schools, creating religions, creating countries, creating, sports teams or beliefs, this kind of energy of like, even like building factories, like literally building society, right? We had the whole like industrial era. And before that, like, I don't even know what's before that. I'm not a fucking historian, but like all of the different times throughout the last 400 years have literally been about family, like creating the family unit, right? Creating schools. And we're kind of we are coming to the end of that. And you can start to see how things are going to be breaking down, right? We've gotten to this place of, okay, we need community, we need systems, we need structure to support us as a society, and to help us organize things and to help us build infrastructure. And then it kind of got too much and overindulged in that cross of planning, if you will, to where now you look around and a lot of our structures are confining us. They're not allowing us to be fully unique individuals. They're not supporting how brilliantly different we all are and supporting how our minds are growing so brilliantly fast, right? So we've created these structures like the internet and like, social media that have been teaching our minds, right? And now we have AI coming out that's so fast and so exponentially changing everything. And so we built all these things that's been needed. But now as we move into the cross of the sleeping phoenix, it's all about what do you need as an individual? How can you be an individual and honor yourself, honor your truth? And if anything is out there that is keeping you from honoring yourself and honoring your truth and being an individual, it's going to eventually crumble over the next few hundred years. So it doesn't mean that like January 1st, 2027, like shit's going to crumble and everything's going to look bad. It just means that we are now entering this new era where collectively we're going to be saying, okay, no, that doesn't work for me as like for my truth, and how can I show up as an individual honoring my truth while still being in society, while still being in community and being in some of these structures that feel really good, right? Like some churches feel amazing for people and their community. Some, having family, having, a school thing that you love is amazing, but only if it's honoring you as an individual and allowing that freedom, that liberation, that self-expression, and that truth to come forward. So when we talk about the new paradigm, a lot of things out there will say, everything's going to crumble and it kind of looks like everybody's out for themselves and only, making selfish decisions that honor what's best in their best interest. And while on, the extreme end, that can definitely be true. On the other side of that, a lot of things are going to be rising that are really helping support the individual expression. And a lot of amazing, true, diverse, symbiotic connection is going to be happening within communities and within families and within structures that we've been building that are willing to change and allow for that diversity in there. So the new paradigm is all about individual expression. And the way that you navigate this change is by knowing how to honor yourself, knowing how to be an individual, right? Like so much of the messaging I received before I knew about human design was like, be yourself, right? We all heard it on the Disney Channel, like over and over, like, be you. And it's like, okay, how? Like what does that mean? Like, who is that? Am I like my friend? Am I like my boss? Am I like my mom? Like, so many people now still like they identify as their church. Like, I'm a Christian, that's who I am. Or I'm, a Raiders fan, that's who I am. And it's like they're identifying with structures outside of them. And while those structures might be fun and bringing in, something amazing to their life that's meant to be there, it's like, do you really know how to know the difference between what you should do and what you really truly is right for you? And can you really listen to that and honor it without guilt or shame or putting yourself aside? Like, can you listen and take action on the things that you are feeling internally and have the clarity to know what that is? And human design offers it up like on a silver platter of like, here's how you trust yourself, give it a shot. And that's the way that you find that stability as things are changing. So a lot of people have, there's so much talk about politics and about like, it should be this candidate or that candidate, or it should be, don't do this thing or do that thing. And while a lot of that conversation is necessary to create and forge this change that we are going to be seeing, on the same hand, like it doesn't matter who wins or loses or what happens, like things are going to be crumbling either way. Shit is going to hit the fan either way in this new paradigm. And like the structures, which a lot of our societal structures still out there, are not going to continue on. And that will be scary for a lot of people who identify with that as who they are, right? Like, I identify as an American. That's who I am. It's like, that's going to be scary as hell. And it's going to rock their world when maybe it looks like, I like to use this example because it's so extreme, but like if aliens invaded tomorrow, we wouldn't be like, I'm an American, go attack, whatever. Like we would be like, no,
those borders wouldn't matter. Yeah.
The borders wouldn't matter, right? Like you wouldn't be identifying with that thing that could crumble literally tomorrow. So that's my whole long G Center spiel on the new paradigm. And there's so much that we could go there, but those are my favorite touching points of like just trying to expand your mind to see that things are going to be crumbling, but also you're going to be okay if you're able to know how to navigate change within your internal system and start noticing like, where am I identifying with some outside authority? And maybe that has been liberating. Maybe that has been supportive. But a lot of times if you are giving your power away to that, then it's probably not. And it's your conditioning. And can you really look at that? Can you even hear that message without being triggered and having fear or defensiveness come up? Because that's really the message that needs to come through to navigate this new paradigm of like really checking yourself. Like, I identify as a good mom, right? Okay. are you giving your power away to the family unit and not actually like, are you people pleasing to sacrifice to be a good mom instead of like internally checking in and saying, what's my truth? Like, I want to make this meal for my family right now. Like, it brings me so much joy. Or I have to make this meal for my family right now because they need me, and actually I'm dragging through the mud and not listening to my truth, right? Like, there's so many little places that we might be giving our power away to a structure, even a structure as small as the family unit. That's all the cross of planning.
Dana, did you have something to add? Yeah.
And I want to say that for anyone, I wanted to say that for anyone listening that maybe this is a new concept and they haven't heard this before, it's not like all of a sudden in January of 2027, the whole world is going to flip over and change. As far as we know, maybe that will happen, but it's really not that. It's this crumbling that we're talking about. You've already been seeing it happen. It's been happening. Yeah. We've been living it. If you're wondering, if you're looking at your kid's school system and being like, why is this falling apart? Ever since COVID, the teachers haven't really been able to come back and recover. And now everything feels different. And it feels like there wasn't this same symbiosis that was happening 15 years ago in a school system. If you're wondering why that's happening, it's because of this shift we're talking about. If you're wondering why you go to your doctor at the, hospital and everything is in chaos and they don't have enough people working there and you're waiting in line all of this time and you can't get a hold of anyone on the phone and you're thinking, what the hell is going on with this hospital? Why isn't it working the way that it used to 15 years ago? I mean, a lot of people are like, was it just COVID? Did COVID destroy our whole world and we never were able to catch up? If you look at it kind of in a more cosmic play, you can see that COVID was a huge catalyst in helping these things unwind and kind of crumble and show us the ways that it's really not working for us anymore. I mean, even like, think about the job structures, corporate structures, where people are feeling trapped, where they don't like their job, they don't get to have autonomy. All of the jobs that are like that and the structures that are built like that are crumbling. So you will go to these, for example, a bank in your city. Like I have my husband's bank here in my town. Literally no one works inside the bank anymore. And it's a huge, gigantic building that is just, the doors are locked and you just use the ATMs. So you go to this giant building with a giant parking lot and everyone is self-serving themselves through the ATM. And it's like, wow, 15 years ago, we had 20 people working in there doing all of this work for us. And now we can use a machine and our phones at home to do this all ourselves, right? So you're seeing that shift. You're seeing that crumbling. And in the same way, you can see with this example of the bank, I feel really grateful that people who don't want to work inside of that bank and be locked in there 8 hours a day don't have to anymore, because my husband can scan his check with his cell phone and do it himself. That makes me feel grateful, because I know a lot of people that will go through these jobs day to day and they will waste their precious gifts and their precious energy doing something for a paycheck because there hasn't been a new way shown to them. And not everyone has the privilege to learn about human design or, listen to, have time and space to listen to podcasts and ask these inquiries. And we're just starting to shift now where it's becoming a necessity to learn about ourselves, to create more space, to get really curious. Those jobs falling apart, it can be scary when we're looking at how much change that's going to create in our economy and the way that we've been running things. But also think about it from a higher perspective. Like, if those jobs don't exist, those people who used to work there will be forced to find something new. And hopefully that will be an opportunity for them to find something that is better, that is innovative, that serves them and their community, instead of it just being a trap that they're in. And so, I just wanted to say that I would encourage you to reflect on all of the places in your life, the structures that have changed, that you're seeing them kind of fall apart, and to just think about what is the opportunity for growth instead? Like, what is a better way to do it where people have more collective freedom, it works more easily, because that is what we really need to focus on right now. Not just what is crumbling, but what we are building.
That's such a good perspective shift. Yeah. And I read something the other day, you were talking about like people wanting to learn more about themselves. I read something the other day, I forget the number, the statistics, but how Gen Z is like all about astrology now, and how like there's so many more people learning about their astrology, and like that's what Gen Z is all about now. But it's like they just want to learn more about themselves. And I think that that is part of this shift where like you're talking about like this individualization. Like, I want to learn more about me and what am I mean, we see this in I've talked about this a few times on the show. We see this in religion, and there's this deconstruction movement of people kind of understanding, like, what do I really believe? I was indoctrinated with these beliefs, but now what do I believe? We see this politics, like all these things are shifting, and there's a reason for all of it. Like, there's a pattern for all of it.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
definitely think like social media, podcasts, like the way that we can get information so quickly now is a huge part of our consciousness evolution as like a collective. And the more our consciousness grows, the more information that we have, the more things are going to crumble, right? Like the more we know, wait, that's how we've been operating. Like, I almost want to say, like, you know, we're pulling the wool off of our eyes. Is that the saying? Right? Like, where it's like, it's not that schools were like perfect, you know, 20 years ago, or that hospitals were amazing 50 years ago. It's like that we're realizing, like, wait, there's a lot of abuse there. Wait, there's a lot of neglect there. Wait, there's a lot of like trauma happening. And we just didn't know, because if I wanted information when I was a kid, I would go to the library and pull up an encyclopedia written 50 years before that, and I would read about it. And so having this much information, honestly, bombarded with information all day long, like we are just, I think, it's enabling the crumbling to happen faster. So who knows? Maybe it will all crumble.
2027 might be crazy.
January 1st, 2027.
We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. We're getting close. I mean, it's like a ticking clock for us in our minds all the time. It's actually a really exciting thing. And I also wanted to say that another key theme of the new paradigm is actually emotions. Understanding your own emotions, allowing them to move you, to allowing them to help you grow and evolve and feel. Like, feeling your feels is so important. And then understanding other people's emotions in your life without absorbing them or like reacting to them too heavily, you know, in your own reactionary way. That emotional realm is also a huge part of this new paradigm. And that's because our solar plexus center in our body graph for all of us, like, this is the main consciousness center that we are evolving into and developing. And so I just wanted to say that, you know, Gen Z is learning about themselves with astrology and human design. I also think that this is like the era of therapy. Go to therapy if it calls you. Read self-help books, understand yourself, feel your feels, get a healer, go to a Reiki practitioner. Anything that you can do to really understand and feel your emotions and become more emotionally intelligent for yourself, for the people in your life. I really think that that's another key element to this. And, you know, even addressing your emotions around fear, navigating uncertainty, fear around change. Like, the more we can be aware of these things, communicate them, own them, take accountability for it, it's going to make this shift easier. So we've talked so much about external society and the things that we're going to see changing, but I want to talk about something that you are empowered to do to make this shift easier and better for you and the people around you. It would definitely be becoming more aware of your emotional center. And for all of us in the human design world, you know, looking at your human design is the most helpful thing for that, because you can see if you have an emotional wave, or if you're an undefined emotional and you're empathetically reflecting and amplifying other people's emotions. But just becoming wise in that area and spending the time feeling your feels is really important.
I'm so glad you brought up the emotional piece, though, because that is such a, I feel like, again, kind of like we were saying before, like we're seeing this already. And I was just noticing the other day, like even in my kids' school, like they're talking about how to manage their emotions and like, what do you do? Like, these are not things I was taught in school. These are not things we were taught in school back in the day, but like regular schools are teaching these. I think we are recognizing like emotional intelligence is a word that we hear a lot now. Like there's so many people who work with emotions and somatics and all. So I feel like we're seeing this, like this is something that we're already witnessing, and I think people are becoming more in tune with. So I love that you brought up that piece. Like, this is something that we can all focus on individually.
Yes. And just the idea of children alone, you know, I wanted to say that anyone who is alive in this time, all of us listening here, your soul chose to be here for a reason. This is a really important time where we are making this huge shift. And every single one of us has something to contribute towards that. So for us that are like millennial generation, we were part of this Pluto and Scorpio generation that was here to help dismantle the illusions and be like, wait a minute, this does not work. This is bullshit. I'm not into this, like all of that. And our generation was really the one that truly like bridged the two worlds and was here to kind of call out what wasn't working so that we can transform it. And then, Gen Z, I feel like came in a different wave than us because they were not the bridge. They grew up always with the internet, having social media since they were children. And they have just a very different take on these things where they kind of came in after the disillusion was already there. So they were never bought into the old paradigm ways. They were always like, yeah, why would I do that? And that's why you see so many Gen Zs. Just for example, personally in my life, I know so many Gen Zs who didn't drink alcohol when they were in high school. They didn't party. They didn't want anything to do with that because it just was clear to them that those things weren't healthy for them. Whereas my generation, we were really bought into like, oh, we have to pretend we're adults and we have to do these things that are bad for us in order to look cool. And then we had to awaken on our own in our 20s, like, maybe this isn't good for us. And, like we really had to go through that journey, whereas the generation after us really got to kind of already be there in that illumination. And then I feel like children that are coming in right now, they are modeling for us so much of the change that we're growing into. So many children that you meet right now, they are so intuitive and open-hearted and already so wise. And they are really attuned to their emotions and they are really empathetic. And even from a very young age, they're very vocal about their truth and about what they're feeling and what they're thinking. And it's just amazing and I feel like, in this conversation, it's always really important for me to talk about the hope that we need to focus on because otherwise, it can be a little bit intimidating to be going through such a big change. But when you meet children right now that are so emotionally intelligent and they're like 4 years old, it really gives you hope for the future that we're moving into. And we have so much to learn from this younger generation that, they know things coming in that they were never programmed with, that they never had to unbecome. Right. And in all of us adults that are spending a lot of time still deconditioning and unbecoming. I feel like spending time with children who are already so open-hearted and authentic and emotionally intelligent can be something that just is a light in our lives and kind of shows us the hope and the potential of the future that we are building. To see that you've had a big part in it, even if you had a shitty corporate job that you had to leave and it was scary and you had to dismantle that, really giving yourself credit for the fact that that has been something that was a powerful part of your role. And the fact that you had to experience that old paradigm and awaken to the fact that it didn't work and make a change as an individual. That whole journey, like it's not about, always being perfect from the get-go. For us in the millennial generation, it was about being that bridge. And so if you've experienced both and you've awakened and you're questioning things and examining things, I hope that anyone listening can feel proud of themselves to see the role that they're playing.
That's such a good way
in
to
this
put
collective
it. And you're
shift.
right. And I see that with my kids are still little. They're 4 and 7. And me and my husband have had this conversation so many times where he's like, how are they so like they're so wise and they're so intuitive, like how and it's like you see it and it does give, and I've said that before, like this gives me hope, like they got themselves, like they're good. And so I think that's something, and like you're right, all of us can learn from that. And I think that's the big lesson to take with this, like it's to just have our own backs with that, like, and knowing yourself in that deep way and having that emotional intelligence and all those things. I think that's so powerful to bring with us into this new show. And I could talk about this for another hour, but I want to ask y'all each one more question as we start to wrap up here. First of all, thank you that was so detailed. Like that was so perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to bring to everybody listening. Like it was such a good picture of what's coming. And for us, just like to be prepared, but also have hope. Like this is perfect. So another question I want to ask y'all, the last one, but each of y'all will answer, that I like to ask everybody as we wrap up is, what do you think is the most important thing you can do to live with purpose?
Wow, that's a deep question. I definitely think that the most important thing that you can do is actually start with yourself. And, when we talk about purpose and how you're going to help the world or be of service, I feel like a lot of us were taught to start with the collective, to start with the other. who is it that I want to help and how do I want to help and what do I want to build? And I just think that if you're only focusing on those things without really truly knowing yourself first, you can create something and work really, really hard, but it's not actually in alignment for you and it won't be sustainable. It won't be lasting. Like one of my friends always asks me, like, what is your number one business tip for anyone who's starting on an entrepreneurial journey? And I'm like, it's gotta be know yourself first and move into it in alignment, because you can build anything. You can work super hard. You can burn yourself out. You can swim upstream and you probably can do it. But if you put in all of that effort and it wasn't actually right for you, and you were building it in a way that is not harmonious with yourself, it won't be sustainable, lasting, and all of that effort will kind of be a waste. So with purpose, I really feel that if you start with yourself and you start from alignment, then what you create will have such a longer lasting effect. It'll be like the wind is literally in your sails. So as you are going and moving, there are cosmic forces and forces of life that are carrying you, supporting you. And I think that's important because I feel like we just have these stories that it's always going to be hard to change the world. It's always going to be hard to be purposeful or to provide for yourself. But what if we can make it easier by just simply starting with ourselves first? So for anyone that has this big dream or big vision, I love that. I'm so into that for you. And I would recommend spending some time thinking about yourself as an individual first. That way you move into that thing in a way that's going to be really lasting and sustainable. So I feel like that's probably a little bit of a basic answer, since we're all human design guides and we're like, start with yourself, learn about your human design. I genuinely feel that way because I've seen people build something incredible with so much effort and then it falls apart because
100%.
they weren't taking care of themselves at the center of what they were building.
I love that answer. Shayna?
Yeah. So I would say, gosh, with purpose, that word is so big that I think that a lot of us think that living your purpose, right, is like something that you have to go try to attain and try to become and like grow to, and like you're going to reach it someday, like I was kind of talking about in the beginning. And I really would encourage you to sit with your energy, like feeling the energetics of your being, because human design is just giving you language to something that's felt, something that is just energy. It just is, right? And it's breaking it down in this language so that way our mind can mentally understand it and then we can work with it. But if you can just sit in your energy and feel how it feels, right? And then noticing the things throughout your day that are impacted by your energy, right? Like the conversation you have with a friend or the people in the grocery store and how they, you know, the looks that you get from people as you're passing on the street, the way that your kids feel around you or that you feel around them. And, you know, learning your cross of incarnation is really helpful because then you can really understand like what your cross is, like what your purpose is. And your cross of incarnation isn't like this thing that you're here to do. It's the energy that you're here to be in everything that you do. So like I'm saying, with those smaller conversations and smaller interactions, like you are here to be that energy, that purpose in those interactions. So I would really recommend like just observing how you are already living your purpose right now in this moment and the ripple effect that that's having around you without necessarily having to go create this huge thing or initiate this big project. Like you are your purpose right now. And if you can just sit and see that, I think that's one of the biggest things that you can do.
We're so profound. I love this question because everybody has such a different take on the word and on what it is. And I think these are both, they're so in line with what human design is all about. So I love that this is like on brand for like what we're talking about here for human design. And I couldn't have said it any better. So thank y'all for those very beautiful answers, for bearing with all the technical difficulties that we've had. And for this conversation, I think I'm so excited this is coming out at the beginning of 2026 because it's like, I mean, we're just like inching closer to this big shift that we're going through. So I think this is perfect. Thank you for spending time with us and sharing all of this wisdom and just giving us all something to really contemplate and work towards and be hopeful about and all the things. So thank y'all.
Thanks for having us. This was so fun. I love this topic, and it was such a just fun little party, human design party that we got to have.
Okay.